Hello, everyone, and welcome into my live. I am Coach Sherry, and this is part of my podcast series, Real Talk with Coach Sherry. And you can check out on my tabs if you go to my page, and you can see where I have lives, videos, shorts, and you'll see a tab that says podcast, and you can find my previous podcasts there. I am happy today to be here with you. I was anticipating when it was going to start. 2:30 seemed like a good time. I see Rudy is in the building giving me a time check. Thank you so much, Rudy, for that. Again, we are an hour ahead of you, so I appreciate you for tuning in and always keeping me on track. So thank you. And as you can see from the title of this podcast, it's going to be about Act with Courage Daily. Now, I'm going to give you some overview of different things that may be coming up in your life that is keeping you from acting with courage on a daily basis. Acting with courage is about being bold, but there are so many barriers that get in the way, and I just want to expose them so that you can be aware. When you have that level of awareness, that's when you can really start making those changes. A lot of times people jump in to make that change, but unless you know the root cause and what's really going on and really hold that mirror up, take account for what you're doing and how you're showing up, a lot of times if you don't do that, then the change won't happen. But I'm going to share with you those things. I want you to have your pen and paper ready so that you can write these things down and let it marinate. I want you to write them down. I want you to also take into consideration of how it's showing up for you. I will have questions after each section so that you can really reflect. And reflection doesn't just happen in the moment. You have to let it marinate and really consider all the things that goes into being who you are. And that's a lot. That is a lot. It takes a lot to be who we are. And again, if you want to make that change, you really have to consider all of those areas in your life. I do have some notes down. Hopefully, I'll be able to stay on track. I don't want to keep you here too long. If you're watching this on replay, please let me know, replay gang. And I want to welcome you into, if you're new to my channel, welcome. This channel is about workforce development, career readiness, entrepreneurship, real life, real issues, and real talk. And I believe 100% that everything regarding real life, real issues, and real talk goes into all that we do. So this channel has a lot of varied things that you can see. You can hear motivation, inspiration, but most importantly, it's about the transformation. So I don't just leave you with information that keeps you stuck. My purpose is to provide you with resources, with information to keep you from being stuck and get you unstuck and have you moving forward, and not just to start it, but to continue and complete it. So thank you so much for being here. And let me just see and get my information together so I can share it with you, because this is going to be interactive, but I'm also going to be sharing with you different prompts so you can understand and see it visually of what we are going to be discussing. This is almost like it's a virtual event, absolutely, but it's an event. And in my events, especially if I have a PowerPoint, it's going to reflect what the topic is. So I do have some images that will help you through and understand what we're discussing. So with your notes, I hope that you are sectioning it off. I hope that you will section it off to each of the topics so that it can keep you on track as well. I know for me, when I go to an event or if I'm hearing someone speak, I always have a notebook ready, and I love to have where I can either bold the words of the beginning of whatever the topic is, put a dash by it, put a bullet point by it, so that I can stay on track. And when I go back to review, I understand what it is. And you know what? being on YouTube, and if you are a content creator, but if you are also a content creator and a viewer, which I hope you're both, I hope that you do have your notebook that's just specific for the YouTube videos that you tune into, because there's so much great information that is shared here on a daily basis. And the best way to keep track of it is to really capture it in writing. I always say, put it down in paper and pen, make it plain, and it will stick, and you will be able to see the difference for sure. And let me check. I see Renee Sparks is here. Good afternoon to you. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have your pen and paper ready because we're going to get ready to dive in. I just need to take a sip. All right, let's get it going. So, there are several habits and mental barriers that prevent you from living with courage daily. There are people that hover in the corners that are scared to speak out for themselves. There are people that talk themselves out of doing new things. And those are barriers, and they keep you from taking the necessary risks, standing up for your values, or pursuing your meaningful goals. When you have those barriers and you're not standing up for yourself, you'll find that opportunities will slip by. Moments that you should have seized won't come back again. And then you get disgruntled and angry at yourself, but you didn't have the courage. And I don't know if enough people are stopping to reflect what is keeping you from having that courage. Have you ever stopped to think when you didn't seize that moment, take advantage of that opportunity? What was it that really kept you from doing that? When you don't stop to reflect on what is keeping you from stepping forward, stepping up, being bold, being courageous on a daily basis, it will continuously show up in your life. But once you realize what it is that's truly holding you back, it could be something from your past, it could be your self talk, it could be something that, you know, you realize that, wow, because that person said that, it really made me pause. When you can realize that, that's when you can truly step forward and step up. So let's look at and discuss the unhealthy habits that are courage blockers. And that's what they end up being, are habits. Habits are things that you do without even thinking about it. And not all habits are good. Some people look at habits as just being the types of food you eat, the lack of activity that you have in your life. But habits are everything that makes you who you are. Habits are those things that we do, and it's just part of us. Even down to tying your shoe is a habit, and you know it by heart. You don't even have to really focus on it because it's a habit. And so there are ways in which we receive information, how we move in this world, how we take courage and stand up for ourselves. Those are habits, and if they're not healthy, then you won't get the results that you want on a daily basis. And that's the thing. You want to have what you want, how you want to show up, become part of who you are with greater frequency on a daily basis. So the first one that I'm going to share with you is around procrastination, and that's avoiding important or challenging tasks. How many times have you gotten an assignment, a directive, or you knew that you had to do something? It could be even as small as cleaning a room or a closet in your home, and you avoided it. Something else came up and you were just like, I'm going to do that something else. Something bright and shiny caught your attention, maybe a show on TV, and you just sit down and you realize it's 2 hours later, and you just procrastinated. The whole day went by. You are avoiding important challenges. And some call it being lazy, but it's more about self-protection. Procrastination, it keeps you in a comfortable, familiar space while keeping you from acting with courage and handling what matters, handling your business, handling your handle. And so I want you to think about, and as you're writing down these things, what do you procrastinate about? What do you procrastinate with, or who do you procrastinate with? Maybe they don't need to be in your circle when you know you have important things. And those are the people that are having those long conversations with you. You may receive a phone call or make a phone call, and you tell them, listen, I just have a couple of minutes. I have someplace to go. I have something to do. They heard you say that, but they don't honor your time. And next thing you know, you have missed the time that you had set aside to do what you needed to do because you were talking with them, procrastinating. So who are those people that are not honoring your time, that are not really helping you to move forward and to take action? Because procrastination, it's about delaying your actions. And sometimes when you delay, you a step behind, you're never going to win. You're never going to win when you're a step behind. Whoever crosses that finish line first, they're the ones that were not procrastinating. They're the ones that took action, that jumped when the gun blew and or when the whistle blew and they hit it. How are you hitting it? And if you're not, why? Is it that thing? Are you not comfortable? Maybe you don't feel that you're skilled enough, you have enough resources, you have enough support. What is making you procrastinate? And you can't use those things as excuses because that's what they are. What can you do to move the needle forward? And why are you not moving that needle forward? So I really want you to think about, what do you procrastinate about, or who do you procrastinate with? Okay, so that's a big one. That's keeping a lot of people from reaching their goals. That's keeping a lot of people stuck. When people say, I'm stuck, I don't know which way to go, I don't know what to do, they, a lot of times it's because they are procrastinating. All right. And I'm just going to check the chat again. Love Marlene, hello to you. Thank you for being here. Your live earlier was fantastic. I really enjoyed your message. Thank you for putting out great content. And Renee Sparks, you as well. Thank you all for being here. All right, so we have procrastination. Next, we have, let me see if I can find it. Yes, here it is. All right, seeking approval. And let me take off my, all right, there we go. So seeking approval undermines self trust. So a lot of times, we do not act with courage on a daily basis because we're so busy trying to seek approval, seeking approval from people, places, or things. And I just want to ask you, are you constantly looking for validation from others? Are you constantly looking for people to say, yes, that's a green light, you should do it? Or if you get an opportunity, instead of jumping on it because it is a great opportunity, you have to wait and ask others, do you think I should do it? When you know in your heart of hearts, your soul, your gut, that it is a great opportunity, but you still just want to seek that approval. And if so, you may be avoiding expressing your true self or taking bold actions that might be unpopular. When you seek approval, if they don't find it popular for themselves, in many cases, they'll tell you, no, don't do it. So the actions, they may be unpopular, but that undermines your self-trust, and it makes you less likely to act with courage on a daily basis. So do you seek constant approval? And if so, who are you seeking that constant approval from? And why are you seeking that constant approval from them? You have to ask yourself these questions. That's the root of it. There's so many people that won't take a step forward without the approval of someone. Now, I get it. As a baby, as a child, you need to have the approval of your parents to do certain things. But after a while, as a parent, you have to teach your children how to fly, how to rely on their own thoughts about what that next thing is, to see what decisions they're going to make. And of course, you're not going to let them fail or fall hard, but you do want them to experience some things that are uncomfortable so they know what it feels like to make those right decisions and what it feels like to make those wrong decisions. I remember when I was doing a teaching fellowship, and everything was new. It was young people, middle school students. It was a Title I school. I had very, very challenging, behaviorally challenging students in my class. And oftentimes I would ask the program manager or director, you know for advice, like, what should I do if this is happening? What should I do for this situation? And he would always say, what do you think? What do you think? And when someone continuously asks you, what do you think, without providing you with a solution, you will eventually have your mind shift to always coming up with a solution without asking, without seeking that approval. Because you, if you have experience, if you have skills, if you have the ability to observe, to learn, you absolutely can make the right choices for what you need to do. You know what needs to be done, so do it. If you have to sit back and seek approval, sometimes that approval will come late, too late. Sometimes whoever you are asking for approval from, they don't know the entire story, the entire situation. It's like someone saying, should I marry this person? Should I take this job? Should I move to this other state? They don't know all the ins and outs of that whole situation like you do. Whatever that is, it came to you. It is for you. So you have to make that decision. I get it. Trust, I get it. Sometimes you just want to have some think tank partners. You just want to run some things through. And it's really about you just saying it out loud. And a lot of times, especially as a coach, that's what it's about. You are that soundboard, that third party soundboard often for people because they know what they want. They just don't have the space, um they don't have the place to be able to share it because maybe their circle always wants to jump in and give their advice, give you know, their thoughts of what they would do if it was them. And not necessarily what would be best for you. So a lot of times people will turn to a coach or a counselor or a therapist to share what is going on in their life so that they can really flesh it out undisturbed, unjudged. A lot of times people will judge because they wouldn't have done what you did. So seeking that approval, you have to be mindful of who you're seeking that approval from and what type of questions are they asking you. Are they truly wanting to understand why you are even considering that, considering to do that? And, I have a pretty large team, and they are very, very competent. But when it comes down to the grind of it all, I totally trust what they are doing. So periodically they'll pop in, to my office and say, this is what I'm getting ready to do. What do you think? And I go back to when I was doing my teaching fellowship days and I'll ask them, what do you think? You know what needs to be done, so just do it. If it doesn't come out right, that's when we can have that deeper conversation. That's a life lesson, that's a learning lesson. That's only going to make you better. If you do it well, that's going to make you better. If you don't do it well, that's going to make you better, because we'll know how to fix it for next time. When people think about results, they always are so considered. They're always considering whether or not those results are going to be good. They always want it to be perfect. Oh, the results were great, everything was wonderful, everyone enjoyed it. But I always try to see the pieces that could be fixed, because if you want to rinse and repeat and do that again, you don't want to do it exactly the same. You want to make sure that each time it improves. And so as the results, you think about things that could have been better. But if you are always, telling people what they need to do, how are they going to learn? What trust do you really have in them, and what trust are you building, helping them build within themselves? you know Knowing that the people that you work for or work with trust you and your judgment, that's huge. That's huge. So for those of you that own your own business, that are managers, supervisors, or just part of a team, realize that seeking approval has a lot to do with trust. So trust the team, trust the process, trust yourself for sure. All right, I'm going to check the comments, and I want this to be interactive. So if you have questions, if you have thoughts or experience with any of these things, please put them in the comment section, because you never know who it is going to benefit for sure. A lot of things, people think they're the only one, and then they're like, oh my goodness, no one understands. This only happens to me. Why me? Why is this happening? But then at the end, when you realize that you're not by yourself, you have kindred spirits out there that are going through the same thing. It can take a lot off of your shoulders to know that, other people are experiencing these same things. And we're all in this together. We're all here to improve. That's what it's all about for sure. Yes. And Marlene is saying she lets God validate her. Absolutely. A lot of people seek out man for that advice, but that's why you pray. That's why you pray. You leave it in God's hands. You know that He's got you. He knows your heart. He brought it to you, and it's going to work out. There are things that God only gives you. Absolutely. Or on a daily basis, He only gives it to you. And so trying to ask others what would they do, they wouldn't, because it wasn't given to them. It's yours. And you have to own that for sure. And I see Cams is in the building. Hello to you. Welcome in. Thank you for tuning in. And Sassy, thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you for being here, and thank you all for speaking and being so kind to one another. So again, let me know your thoughts on these different pieces of how you can act with courage on a daily basis. And that's what it's about. But before you act with that courage on a daily basis, you want it to be authentic. You want it to be true for you. And a lot of times people will go through life like, yeah, I'm courageous, I'm bold, but deep down inside, they have so many things that they really need to clean out. Those roots, they need to be weeded. I was looking at some content creators this morning, gardeners, that one of them, I believe it was, I can't recall his name, the Garden State Gardener, I believe it's called. And, he hadn't been in his garden since last year, harvest time. And so he was going in today to clean up the garden so he can plant his things and fertilize the earth and do what he needed to do to get it ready. And it just reminded me of that. It's just, we have things inside that we have to weed out, we have to mow down, we have to chop up, we have to plant, we have to fertilize. If we don't, we can't just plant our courage. We can't just plant our boldness on top of the ground that was not prepared for it. There's a lot that's deep down in there that has to be pulled up, pulled out, thrown away. And if you don't, it's not going to stick. It's going to, you're going to revert back to what you don't want to be and don't want to do. So that's why it's important to clean up how you're showing up so that it's true for you. Otherwise, what you see on the outside is not going to be reflected on the inside. And what is reflected on the inside will always radiate on the outside. And you want that radiation to be beautiful, to be good, to be supportive. And the only way to do that is doing mindful thinking, having a shift in your thoughts and improving. Self-improvement is always, always available and key. All right, the next is about excuses. So, excuses, avoiding responsibility and risk. So, when we talk about making excuses, that is a way to avoid facing fears or your challenges head on. So many people are filled with excuses of why they can't do it. Oh no, that's not me. Oh, you know what? I have something else to do. I'll be right back. Oh, I'm gonna call you right back. When you start, you ever get those conversations on the phone when you're talking this? Now they called you, they wanted your advice for whatever reason on something, or they just wanted to, use you as a soundboard. And the minute you start pointing certain things out, they gotta go. But they're gonna call you right back. They have something came up. And they never do call you back. So that's really interesting. But it definitely excuses prevents you from taking responsibility and making the sacrifices necessary to grow and act bravely. When I pledged my sorority, oh, it's been 36 years now. I remember, and most people that pledged have to remember or learn this this saying about excuses, and I'm just going to give a modified version of it. And that is, excuses are the tools of the weak and incompetent, and those who use them are seldom capable of anything else. And that's one thing. You don't want to be filled with excuses where people just know, okay, here we go, here they go, coming up with something else to say. And you don't want to have make room for excuses in your life. And what excuses are you using that are keeping you from acting with courage on a daily basis? So think about that. What excuses are you using? Are you making the excuse that you don't have time? I remember talking to someone about reading. I love reading. I loved reading even more when I was younger. And I'm getting back into loving it just as much now. And a lot of people I'm encountering, they say, "Oh no, ooh, what? I don't read. Mm-mm, no, I don't read." And it's so amazing to me when they say that because that's actually scary to me when they say that because reading is fundamental. Reading is important. Reading takes you places. And I'm finding that reading is becoming more and more popular. And I'm saying that because here in Charlotte, there's a outlet mall. It's called Concord Mills. It's in Concord, North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte. And they have a huge bookstore in there. It's called Books a Million. Well, recently they built a Barnes and Noble right across the road, like across the street, basically, from Concord Mills. Now, if you see two major bookstores in that close of proximity, you have to know there's something going on with reading. And for those that are not taking advantage and trying to understand what's going on, they're going to be left behind. Unfortunately, they say if you want to hide information from a Black person, put it in a book. We can no longer live like that. We need to pick up books, read them, discuss them, and learn from them for sure. So, what is your excuse? So, I was talking to someone about reading, and he said, people may not have time to read, but they have time to listen. So when you are saying, oh, your commute is so long, or you have to go back to the office and you don't want to because the drive or whatever, put a book on audio, get an audio book, listen to a book while you drive. Take advantage of that airtime and fill your mind with something great. I say fill your mind with an audio book, with a podcast, with something that is going to really help you, propel you, and really support you into where you're trying to go in your life for sure. But excuses are just tools of the weak and incompetent, and it's helping you to avoid responsibilities and taking risks. People are scared. You can't play scared. I don't prefer people on my team to be scared. I'm like, listen, you know if we focus on what may happen that's not good, we'll never get to the good. You're always going to have that one person that's kind of like, I don't want to call them the Debbie Downer, but the one that looks at the other side. I don't focus on the other side. I focus on moving forward. And this is what we're doing. It may get a little rough, but we're going to get through it, and that's how we're going to get better. But you just got to keep going because the more excuses you make, that means that we're sitting around contemplating, thinking about what the shouldas could have been, but instead of doing what we know needs to be done. So, excuses again. When we think about that, what excuses are you using that are keeping you from acting with courage daily? Really, really think about that. All right. So the next is, and this is really interesting for me, the fear of failure, only because I believe more in the fear of success. But if we're talking about acting with courage on a daily basis, we're talking about people that haven't even gotten to the success part. They're not even thinking about it. They're just so scared to take that first step. So it's about the fear of failure. And when we talk about the fear of failure, that's letting the fear of making mistakes or falling short paralyze you. And it can prevent you from taking courageous steps. A lot of times, thinking about, oh, but I might trip up. You know what? I may not have what it takes to get to that point, and you never take that step. You just never do because you're so afraid of what might happen. And 98% of what we worry about never happens. And if you are with a whole crew of people that are right there to take the steps at the same time and you don't and they do, you'll look up and they are far ahead. And you could have been right there with them, but you were so afraid of what could happen that didn't happen and probably wouldn't happen. So you become paralyzed and there is no action. That's even like with YouTube. Yes, being a content creator is not the easiest thing. It's easy, but it's not at the same time. It's easy because all you have to do is hit record. Pick up your phone, pick up your camera, your laptop, whatever device you're going to use and hit record. You can do it as a pre-record, as a live, you could do it in any way. But there's times when you might say, I don't have time to do that. And I get it. Oh my goodness. This past week for me, April really has been tremendous. And trying to etch that time in to do, to put out quality products could be challenging. But if you don't do anything, that fear of failure, because maybe you're worried about what people will say, how you look, what people will say about how you look, what people will say about how you speak, how you say certain words, it'll paralyze you to never start. Back in the day before YouTube was a thing, or it was a thing, but it wasn't as popular as it is now. It wasn't about the vlog, it was about the blog, when people would write what people are now saying in front of the camera, and people would write them in pieces, put them on platforms like a WordPress or Blogspot, and people from all over the world would read what they had written. And there was a woman in Atlanta that I was connected with, and my specialty is, for especially for business, is attraction marketing, and so is hers. So we became think tank partners. And I remember her writing blogs, and I would look at the comments, because it wasn't recorded in terms of a video, but people still would leave comments, and people from all over the world would praise the things that she said. Oh my goodness, thank you, this is so wonderful, I needed to hear this is spot on. Oh, I was looking exactly for this. And I hadn't started writing anything yet. I was getting paralyzed. It wasn't, I didn't call it a fear of failure, but basically it was the fear of being judged for, is the writing that I do, is it going to be, correct? Will I have a lot of mistakes in it, grammatical errors, just really being concerned about that. Will people understand the things that I'm writing? Will it be digestible? Will it be information that they could really use? So those were some things that I was thinking. So that is a fear of failure. And that was paralyzing me from taking action. So when I would read her comments, I was like, wow, these people really love her content. And then it was interesting because she got so much, messages, so many messages, until I would read those first. And then I would go up to read her content. And I was always blown away by her content because it sounded like her voice. And it wasn't grammatically correct at all. And it was just interesting how it had so many errors in it, but it had the information that everyone needed. And that's when I realized it's not about how you say it, it's about what you say. The delivery of it, the fact that people do want it to be more relatable. They do want to see themselves, hear themselves in you. They want to hear your real voice. And that put me into action to start my blog. And that's even with YouTube. I've been here, this is sweet 16 for me. And years ago, I started out as a viewer. I just became really a content creator in around 2019, 2020, seriously. And when I was a viewer, the encouragement came from people that were talking about things similar to what I shared, what I was doing. And I would see how they were doing it. And I'm like, wait, I can do that. So as a content creator, as someone that's a viewer, let's say starting out, if you have that fear of failure because of you're afraid you're going to be judged, or you don't have the proper equipment, the setup, the studio, the microphone, or whatever the case, don't worry about that, just start. And that's with anything, because being paralyzed with taking action will keep you stuck, and you will not act with courage on a daily basis. Be bold with it, for sure. So when we talk about that, the fear of making mistakes, how is fear of failure keeping you from acting with courage on a daily basis? And I really want you to dig deep when I'm asking these questions, because these are the questions you need to answer for yourself. No one can answer them for you. This definitely can be something you can have a conversation with your circle about, but you have to be able to answer that for yourself. All right. So the next one is, okay, yes, this is a good one too. Let me see. Hmm. Perfectionism. All right. So striving for flawlessness can keep you stuck in preparation mode. So a lot of times people just love to prepare. They're always getting started. They're getting all the tools they need, the paper, the pens, the colors, all of that in preparation. And they're trying to be so perfect with it. They want things lined up. They want it to be the same font, the same points. And they're afraid to move forward unless everything is perfect. Hmm. And this habit, it blocks courageousness and courageous actions. And also, it prevents you from learning from your mistakes. It prevents progress and it increases your fear. Because now, the longer you're taking to get it perfect, the longer it is taking to get started. And then you start having those self doubts. Like look at that pencil. You want that point to be perfect. So you keep sharpening it and it keeps getting smaller until it's a nub. And there were points of it that were perfect, that would have done just fine. But you were waiting to see the perfectionism of it. So you now have wasted a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it just really increased your fears because now you're behind the ball, you are running out of time is limited, and that's something you can't get back. The days have gone on, you were just waiting for this delivery, oh, you're just waiting for this one piece that never comes, and then you are finding that you are not living with courage on a daily basis. You're not being bold, taking those moves. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. Everything does not have to be in place. So, how is perfection keeping you from acting with courage on a daily basis? How is that keeping you? What is it doing? What does that look like for you? And let me check the chat. I see Monique is in the building. Hello, Monique. Thank you for being here. It's great to see you. It's great to see you. And Lisa J. Stocks, welcome in. Thank you for that thumbs up. Thank you so much for the support. So, how is it? And so, with all of these, I want you to ask yourself, how is this showing up for yourself, for your life, in your life? All right. Now, the next one is, let me see, where is it? I think this is it. Yes, lack of self belief. This reduces motivation and risk taking. Lack of self belief. That's doubting your abilities or worthiness. And it can really sap your motivation and willingness to take risks. When you don't think you're worthy to be in the room, to be at the table, when you don't think that you have the abilities to do that particular thing, that new project that was that was given to you, that new assignment, when you don't think that you have the ability or that you're worthy, it can definitely sap your motivation. You need to keep your head high and understand that maybe you haven't done those things before, but you absolutely are going to come out better because you're going to learn a new skill. I love when I am presented with something new to do, a new project, learning something new, going somewhere different. I love it because I know that, yeah, I'm going to be off balance. It's all going to be brand new to me. It's like looking through it with a child's set of eyes. And I know also that at the end of it, I'm going to be even that much stronger because I'm going to have those new skills, that new experience in my bucket. They're going to be part of my nuggets that's making me that much more valuable. And a lot of times when people are going through something like that, they don't pay attention because they're just trying to walk straight with tunnel vision, not looking to their left, to their right, not looking all around, taking it all in because they have a lack of self-belief. They don't really believe that they belong there. So they're trying to play it small and not courageous and bold. And then they forget about it because once they go through it, they're such a sigh of relief. They're so happy that they got through it that they're not even remembering all the things, all the value add that they just received from going through that. A lot of times people ask me, in my, outside of YouTube, how do you remember that? Like, how do you know that? Oh, you have so many experiences. Wow, you've done a lot. Everybody's done a lot. I just pay attention because I know that I'm worthy to be on in all those spaces, at all those tables. So when I'm there, I'm taking it all in. So don't lack self-belief. Know that you're worthy, and have a willingness to take those risks. You know that God got you. I always say my steps are ordered. I walk one foot in front of the other, but I don't know what type of ground is going to land on, but I know God got me. So it is going to land. That's the thing. Even if it's walking off a cliff, I know that that cliff is going to be extended because my trust is just that strong. When you don't have that, when you have that lack of self belief, you really make it difficult to act courageously in new or challenging situations. So always know that when you have a new thing that you're doing, and almost on a daily, sometimes, it could be weekly, monthly, whenever it arises for you in your life, when those new opportunities come, walk through it with courage. Be bold with it. Be excited about it. When there's hard things, people always say, "Oh my goodness," they dread it. I I receive it with open arms. Like, yes, because once we get through, because you will, as long as you wake up in the morning, as long as you wake up looking down on the flowers and not up to those flowers, you have a chance to get it right, and that hard is going to get easier for sure. So, how is lack of self belief keeping you from acting with courage on a daily basis? Think about that for yourself. Again, how is lack of self belief keeping you from acting with courage daily? These are your own notes. This is what's true for you. You don't have to share this with anyone but yourself. So at least be truthful with yourself. Where are you lacking self belief? All right. The next one is, hmm, yeah, this is a good one too. Avoiding feedback. Avoiding feedback when you don't want to hear it, you just don't have time for it. That really blocks your growth and resilience. It really does. So, ignoring constructive criticism or refusing to seek feedback can create blind spots and really prevent you from growing. And that's essential for building courage and resilience. A lot of people, they feel like they're being judged because they're getting that feedback. Even if you are, you want to see yourself from different angles. I always tell clients, I give them a document to have a 360 evaluation from those in their circle, people they work with, people they know personally, so that they can see how they're showing up for others. You know how you're showing up. But if you really want to grow, you want to see how you're showing up for others. You want to see how you are perceived, and you will be surprised in many cases. So many people, when I give them that assignment, are so fearful, like, oh my goodness, what are people going to say? I probably, I don't know if I can handle it. Oh yeah, you can handle it. You can. And you're going to grow from it, because you might find out things that, well, you definitely will find out things you never knew about yourself, but it'll be things that are beyond your imagination. The way that you are perceived and how people see your strength. They see your resilience. They talk about how you empower others. Things that you do that are habitual, you just do and you take it for granted. Habits are good, habits are bad, but those good habits, we take them for granted. And we don't stop to realize that we are very impactful as human beings. We change people's lives sometimes just through conversation, sometimes just from showing up in your authentic self. So don't avoid feedback. Know that you will grow from that experience, from that information. It's almost like debriefing a situation. When you have an event, when you have a project, you want to debrief. Debriefing is that feedback. What did you think? How did it go? What can we do better? However, when it's for you, it's how can you do better? What can you do differently next time? What do you want to do that's the same? What do you want to embrace and do more of? So, when we talk about feedback, how is avoiding feedback keeping you from acting with courage on a daily basis? What are you avoiding? Those are real questions. All right. The next is distractions, busyness. And that avoids, you're avoiding facing real challenges. Filling your time with distractions or unnecessary tasks, those can be a way to avoid facing uncomfortable truths or difficult decisions that require courage. People always want to, oh, I'm be over here. Oh, the baby's crying. I'm going to pick the baby up. I'm over here. I'm with the baby. I'm with the kids. Hmm. Those are really interesting. And a lot of times people will do that during major conversations. Think about family discussions, and all of a sudden someone has to go check on the kids or check on the food. And I get it. It can be uncomfortable, but once you get through it, it makes everyone that much better. Even in my programs, I always take the participant to the side to have a one-on-one conversation. I'll take their mentors to the side or their trainers to the side to have one-on-one conversations. And if I'm finding that both are having a challenge, but they are trying to make themselves distracted or avoiding each other with those challenges, I bring them both to the table, and I make them talk it out, how they are feeling, what thoughts they have, what is going on, what are their concerns, so that they can lay it all out on the table. That's how I am even as a parent. And so many parents, that's why some siblings don't get along. That's why some siblings don't, support one another. It's because it's the parent. A lot of times people don't have the capacity, the understanding, the wherewithal to do it for themselves. Not everyone has those types of um, abilities, to really hash things out with others. So sometimes you need that third party. And if that third party really cares about you both and understand the importance of the situation being successful for everyone, they'll bring you all to the table. So as a parent, if your children are having challenges with one another, be it through communication, actions, whatever the case may be, you need to bring them all to the table. First, talk to each one of them separately, and then bring them to the table. It is not normal for siblings to fight. A lot of times people think it is, oh, they just, you know how brothers and sisters are, you know how sisters are, you know how brothers are. No, it doesn't have to be like that. You have to set the stage and set it early, because at the end of the day, if the way that, the order of things go the way that it should, they may end up being the only thing, or may only be there for each other, the only thing left. So they have to get along. And I understand not every sibling or relative or whatever has the same mindset. You know, they experience things or internalize things differently. Now, it is more challenging when you let them get up in age. That's why, as young children, you have to definitely nip it in the bud early. And a lot of people don't, because they are just saying, oh, that's just the way siblings are. They, as young kids, as babies, oh, they don't like each other. She don't like the attention I give to the other. One of your children don't like the attention the other is getting, you need to sit down and have a talk with them. Don't just brush it under the rug, because that escalates, that grows into something that's not going to serve anyone well in the future, and it will also spill over into their other relationships. So those distractions become excuses. Oh, I couldn't come because I was too busy. Oh, I was over here doing this and I didn't hear what y'all said. Oh, you can tell me later. Give me like the Cliff Note version of it. When you really needed to hear the whole thing. Oh, we were going to talk, but can we talk later? And later becomes later, and later becomes later still. So you want to face those challenges. There's a lot of things that, you might do in life that are hard, decisions you may have made, places you may have shown up at, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't be here. You really need to face all of that head on. If you know that you have a situation, you need to speak about it with that person without any fear, but with courage. So, how is distraction and busyness keeping you from acting with courage daily? And you will be surprised when you have those deeper conversations, when you allow yourself to be part of those moments and play full out, how how freeing that is. It really opens you up and you can move forward with a clearer mind. And that is so important. That is so important. A lot of people are walking around with foggy minds. They're not focused. They're making poor decisions because they have not addressed those challenges. And the more foggy you are, people will say, well, I'm depressed. I can't do it. That's a distraction. You have to fight through that because the next day is going to come. If you are drinking your way through those distractions, guess what? When you sober up, it's going to be there. That challenge is still going to be there. So the best thing you can do is the best thing you can do, and that is to face it head on and be courageous about it, be bold about it. So again, how is distraction and busyness keeping you from acting with courage daily? I see Coach Mean Reen is in the building. Hello to you. Hello, hello. And TCHBCU, hello. Great to see you. Great to see you. Thank you all for being here. Great to see all of you. So, distractions and busyness. The next is neglecting your health, mental and physical health. Y'all, I hope if you have plants that you're naming them because that's life. That's life. And when they are neglected, that's what they look like. When we neglect ourselves, that's what we look like. And unfortunately, it starts with our insides looking like that. Mhm. Then it eventually will start to resonate on the outside. It'll drain your energy and your resilience. You'll find yourself just always tired. You don't want to do anything. You can't even contribute in a positive way to situations because you have been neglecting your health. Hmm. And poor self care, such as not prioritizing your mental health, inconsistent sleep, or unhealthy eating, can definitely drain your energy and resilience, making it harder to summon, to bring up courage when you need it. I know so many people, they just let life for them. They just let life happen. They just got beat down by it. And I get it. There's some things that in that moment you just can't take no more. But they never got back up. And then when it was time for them to get back up, it was harder. They couldn't. As long as you have life, live. and live to the best of your ability and beyond. When you know that there's some changes going on in your life, address it. Don't wait for that tap on the shoulder. It's not going to come. No one's going to tell you to seriously address it. They can't make you. What, they're going to drive you to the doctors and drop you off and you don't even have an appointment? Who's making your appointment? Is it your friend? Is it your coworker? Is it your spouse? Is it your child? You need to make it. You feel better when you move. So why'd you stop? You have to have your energy. You have to be resilient for times such as these. There are people counting on you, but the most important is your future self is counting on you to not neglect yourself, for you to be courageous and bold. So what are you neglecting mentally and or physically that is keeping you from acting with courage on a daily basis? Again, this is real talk. And I'm hoping that you are writing all of these down and these questions and let this information marinate. Don't just write anything down just to write it down, but really think about it. Think deep about it so that when you do write it, it really will make sense and you can start seeing the root cause of what's going on, of what's holding you back from being courageous, from being bold on a daily basis. Because that's where you'll find your energy. That's where you'll find your voice. That's where you'll find your purpose. A lot of times people don't have or don't know what their purpose is, what they're passionate about, because they're living hovered in a corner, paralyzed. Their eyes are closed. They have tunnel vision. They're being distracted by things that don't even make sense. They're avoiding. They have excuses. And they really don't realize it because that's a habit. Your habits, you don't even realize that they're your habits. That's just what you do. But with this this information in this video, I'm trying to show you what we're doing, holding that mirror up so you can see it, so that you can start making those changes that are going to be more supportive of you, so that you can be that change that you say you want to be with greater frequency. You don't want to just act with courage daily. You want to make courage your daily legacy. You want to be known for that courage, that authentic, sincere, real courage. You want that to be part of your legacy. That's who you are. That's what you do. Your future self will definitely thank you for it. And if nothing else, that's what we almost should just focus on. Living our best lives for our future selves. Because we don't know how long we need to make sure that it is the best that it can be. We don't know. We don't know. I hope that the call I just got didn't disturb the whole entire live, but kind of think it did. So I just want to thank you all for being here, rocking with me. And I hope you all got a nugget or two from this podcast on how to act with courage on a daily basis. It's been my pleasure sharing this information, and I hope that you found it helpful. Remember, every day, practice, practice so hard that when you get into play, you will always play to win. It's been my pleasure. I am Coach Sherry.